How long can I stay? I just entered the U.S. I have a visitor's visa that says it is good for 10 years. But at the airport, they stapled a card in my passport that says I was admitted for 6 months. How long can I actually stay in the U.S.? 6 months or 10 years? I can't tell you how often we get asked this question, but it has to be at least a dozen times a month. The lack of knowledge or misunderstanding about the role of a visa and the I-94 card has been a major factor for many foreign nationals that have fallen out of status in the United States. Why is this? What is the difference between the visa and the I-94 card? Which one determines how long I can stay in the U.S., the I-94 or the visa? The simple answer: a visa allows a person to appear at the gate, a port of entry, and ask to be let in. And the I-94 card is your actual admission ticket, telling you how long you can stay and what you can do while you're here. The visa versus I-94 card. Let's look at the overview. While a visa is a permit to seek entry into the U.S., the I-94 card, as I said earlier, gives you permission to enter and remain in the U.S. Very few foreign nationals are aware that their stay in the U.S. is controlled by the I-94 card issued to them at the time of entry, and not by their visa. Incorrect interpretations of the dates on the I-94 or visa could cause serious trouble. It is the I-94 card that says how long you can stay in the U.S. and what status you were admitted in. Just to make sure you clearly understand this, let's look at another example. A citizen of China who wishes to enter the U.S. as an H-1B professional can get a visa that is only valid for 3 months. However, they can be admitted for the length of the approved petition, typically 3 years. This means that the individual must travel to the U.S. within 3 months of being issued the visa. But once he or she enters the U.S., they would be able to stay for up to 3 years. He or she would only have to depart the U.S. at the end of the specified period or the date specified in his I-94 card. Now that we have a general overview of the I-94 and the visa, let's look at the specifics and the differences between the visa and the I-94. Jae Young, a Korean citizen who is a reporter for the Korean Times, is being transferred to the U.S. as a foreign correspondent for the paper. He will be stationed in Washington, D.C. and reporting on U.S. politics. He is granted an I visa for journalists and media representatives. The visa is valid for 5 years. When he entered the U.S., his I-94 card was marked DS for duration of status. This means that as long as Jay is working as a foreign correspondent for the Korean Times, he can stay in the U.S. There is no end time that he is required to leave the U.S. What is the I-94? The I-94 card, also known as the Arrival Departure Record, is a small white-colored card given to all non-immigrants when they enter the U.S. The I-94 card serves as evidence that a non-immigrant has entered the country legally. It is stamped with a date indicating how long the non-immigrant may stay for that particular trip. It is this date, and not the expiration date of the visa, that controls how long a non-immigrant may legally remain in the U.S. A new I-94 card with a new date is issued each time the non-immigrant legally enters the U.S. The I-94 card will be stapled in your passport, normally on the page opposite your visa. Note that because of special rules in place between the U.S. and Canada, Canadian visitors are not normally issued I-94s. When you enter the U.S. as a non-immigrant, a U.S. immigration inspector will examine your passport and visa, question you on the reason for your visit, and, if satisfied that you qualify for the non-immigrant status you are seeking, and will abide by the U.S. immigration rules, give you the Form I-94 Arrival Departure Record. As I stated before, it is this record, not your visa, that tells you, in the lower right-hand corner, when you must leave the United States. On this I-94 card, the immigration inspector will write either a date or DS for duration of status. If you have duration of status, you may remain in the U.S. as long as you are in the same job or attending the same school. You will complete this form and submit it to the immigration inspector when you arrive at the airport, seaport, land border crossing point, or other port of entry. I-94W, citizens from countries in the U.S. Visa Waiver Program list who are entering the United States for a short stay and who are not U.S. citizens or permanent residents must fill out an I-94W instead of the I-94 I-94. Shown here is a sample of the I-94 with relevant information. This includes admission number, date of birth, and name. You have to be very certain that all the information in your I-94 card is correct, and that your name, date of birth, and country of citizenship match the information in your passport. What is the purpose of the I-94 card? The I-94 card serves as the registration form for foreign nationals admitted to the U.S. as non-immigrants. This document is created by U.S. immigration when the foreign national is inspected upon arrival at a U.S. port of entry. The immigration inspector will endorse the I-94 card with the date of arrival, place of arrival, status granted, such as F, J, H, L, and length of authorized stay. The foreign national keeps the I-94 card as their official record of admission and permission to remain in the U.S. If a foreign national either needs to remain in the U.S. longer than the time granted, or decides they want to change their status and remain in the U.S. beyond the date on the I-94 card, he or she must file an application for a change of status or an extension of stay with the USCIS. When you depart the U.S., you must surrender your I-94 card, unless you will be traveling only to Canada, Mexico, or adjacent islands, other than Cuba, for a period not exceeding 30 days. In that case, you may be able to use the I-94 card to re-enter the United States. Now that we know what the I-94 card is and why the U.S. immigration uses it, let's look at and see what a visa is. Then we can see the differences between the visa and I-94. Hopefully then you will not be confused in the future. A visa is a stamp in the foreign national's passport issued by an American embassy or consulate in the foreign national's home country. This visa allows the foreign nationals to seek entry to the United States in certain visa status within the time period, the validity period, specified on the visa. A visa may allow 1, 2, or multiple entries before the expiration date of the visa. Here's a copy or sample of a visa. The visa allows the foreign national to seek entry to the United States in a certain visa status within the time period or validity period specified on the visa. The differences between the visa and the I-94. It is extremely important that you clearly understand the difference between visa and I-94 card. The major differences between the visa and I-94 card are: the I-94 card is stamped with a date that indicates how long the foreign national can stay in the United States for that particular trip. On the other hand, the visa allows you to seek entry to the U.S. in a certain visa status within the time period specified on the visa. Your stay in the U.S. is not determined by the expiration date of your visa. The I-94 card gives you permission to remain in the U.S., while the visa gives you permission to seek entry to the United States. The I-94 generally has a validity period shorter than your visa. The I-94 card is completed by an immigration inspector when a foreign national is inspected upon his arrival in the U.S., whereas a visa is issued by the U.S. State Department and is obtained at an American consulate outside the United States. What do you do if you want to apply for a change of status or extension of stay, but your I-94 card will expire next month? If you want to stay longer than the date authorized on your I-94 card, you must apply for an extension of stay with the USCIS. If you are in the U.S. in any non-immigrant category that supports a change of status or extension of stay, you can file for a change of status or extension of stay by filing Form I-539 with USCIS. It is generally advisable to file for the extension or change of status request at least 30 days before the expiration of the I-94. The decision to grant or deny a request for extension of stay is made solely in the discretion of the USCIS. You have no right to stay beyond the date of your I-94 card. However, once you file the extension, your stay will be considered valid until they make a decision. In some cases, you may not be able to be eligible to apply for an extension. Also, the USCIS generally will not extend your stay for a period longer than the validity period of your visa. If the USCIS approves such an application, they will issue an approval notice, the bottom portion of which is a new I-94 for the foreign national, reflecting the new visa status and/or the extended or new period of authorized stay for that status. Foreign nationals who enter the U.S. under the Visa Waiver Program are not entitled to change their status or extend their time of stay in the U.S. They must depart within the 90-day period allowed for visa waiver visitors. Moreover, they may not simply travel to a contiguous territory and return for a new 90-day period. Proof that you are willing to obey U.S. immigration laws and follow the dates on I-94 or visa appropriately, i.e. applying for an extension rather than just staying past the time on your I-94, will be important if you want to travel to the United States in the future. What if your I-94 card has incorrect information on it? If you discover after entry that the I-94 card was issued to you with an error, you should go, if possible, to the port of entry where you entered, and if not possible, to the nearest Immigration, Customs and Border Protection office with proof of entry or admission and the I-94 card and request a corrected I-94. If the incorrect I-94 card was issued by USCIS at a local USCIS office or from a USCIS service center, you should go to the nearest USCIS office and request a new Form I-94. If the immigration officer at the local office is not convinced that the I-94 was issued in error, he or she may advise you to file a Form I-102, application for replacement of an initial non-immigrant arrival departure document. This is why it is so important to take the time to check your I-94 card for correctness before you leave the inspection area. A quick check can save you several hours of frustration later in your trip. Applying for a visa is only the first step in your journey to the U.S. Once you receive a visa, you can travel to the United States and seek admission. However, the visa does not guarantee that you will be allowed to enter the U.S. It is up to the immigration inspector at the port of entry, who comes from a separate government agency, who has the authority to grant or deny your admission to the United States. In addition, it is the immigration inspector, not the terms of your visa, who will determine how long you get to stay in the United States. Incorrect interpretations of the dates on your I-94 or visa could cause you serious trouble. If you have any queries about the I-94 card or how long you can stay in the U.S. or extend your stay, consult a Visa Pro immigration attorney. We will be happy to guide you through the process.